Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. Thought I'd do a quick video, or quicker for me, to try and round up bits and pieces in the world of Tottenham Hotspur. I should put out a quick warning that Indy, my dog, is right next to me on the sofa. He's got very little interest, I think, in actually showing his face, but you will hear the occasional sigh. You know he's definitely a Tottenham fan when he sighs. Might bark, especially if the ice cream van goes by, but yeah, as I sigh myself. But he is there, and he is the unpredictable factor in this video. He could do anything. Let's start straight away with the injury news. A little piece that came up just before I started to kind of over and do this. Lucas Bergvall, he's returned to North London without playing a minute for Sweden ahead of their next game. He was among the subs for their 2-2 draw, I think it was, against Slovakia on Thursday, but it's been announced that he's got a little minor injury issue. Sweden set to take on Estonia tonight, actually, I think it is, and they've announced that. Here's their little statement. Lucas Bergvall has suffered a minor injury and will not be available for tonight's game against Estonia in the Nations League. The midfielder has left the men's national team gathering in Estonia to focus on his rehabilitation. Ahead of the game, it became clear that Lucas will not be available for the match. He's left the collection to manage his rehabilitation in a club environment. So, fingers crossed that that's nothing too bad, and it is just a little minor thing that they... just thought there's no point. He's unlikely to play because of it, so he might as well go back to the club. Because Spurs have got a load of games coming up. We really don't want him missing out because this could be a good opportunity for him to get some minutes. More positive injury news certainly comes in the case of Sonny, Richarlison and Wilson Odobert. So Sonny, I'm sure you're well aware, has missed the last 3 games with a hamstring injury, which he suffered late on against Karabag. Also missed out on South Korea's World Cup qualifying games against Jordan and it was the other one, Iraq. I've written it down here. Postecoglou kind of suggested that he was getting a bit closer. He was getting there maybe for the Brighton game, but wasn't quite ready for that. And I think he posted Sonny an image of himself forlornly looking over training pitches on Instagram with a little lily white heart with the words "back soon." And from what I understand, he should be involved in training over the course of this week at some point. But of course, always got to stress this with muscle injuries of any sort. It's very much all on those first couple of days because you can come back, feel absolutely fine. And the moment you get involved in any kind of twisting, turning, contact element to training, you can feel it. And you don't want to either you don't want to aggravate it. That's best case scenario if you feel that. Worst case scenario, obviously, you have a setback and you do something again, which is, hey, it's Spurs. Look, to be fair, lots of clubs do that, but it just feels very personal when it happens at Spurs, doesn't it? We feel like there's more, and I'm sure if you went to other clubs, they probably have all the same issues. But yeah, so Sonny, hopefully back in training. Indy's moving around. Where's he going to go? No, he's right. I thought he was going to end up jumping off the sofa. Richarlison, he's been out since the second game of the season. Against Everton, his old side, came off the bench for the final 25 minutes or so. His issue has been a calf injury that he's had over the past about 6 weeks. Postecoglou, I think Postecoglou said he had a little bit of a setback in the middle, didn't he? Because he wasn't expecting him out to be out that long. And yeah, we've seen him kind of back on the grass. We've seen images of that with Richarlison. He is also expected to be back in training at some point this week, but they're going to take it so carefully with him because there's been so many false dawns with Richarlison. Essentially since he came to Spurs, £60 million deal from Everton 2022 was it? He's had so little rhythm to his game time at the club. It's unbelievable. Every time he's kind of come back, hasn't really lasted that long and he's been out again. So they are going to be so ultra cautious with him just to make sure that he's okay to play. Wilson Odobert, same. I think they were expecting, I don't know if they were expecting, but maybe we were all expecting a bit of a longer period of time for the young Frenchman to be out. But it seems like he also could be involved at some point over the course of this week ahead of the West Ham game. Again, hamstring injury once more. They're all 2 hamstring injuries, 1 calf injury, and it is very much about how that hamstring kind of responds to being back in training, or even just stepping up the activity fitness level before that. So fingers crossed. We get to see all three back in action sooner rather than later. But it's fingers crossed. I mean, if any of them aren't ready to be back involved in like a sub capacity for West Ham, you've got the RZ game coming straight after, pretty much in the Europa League. Is it Palace away after that? I think, isn't it? And then Man City Carabao Cup. So there's a game every 3 to 4 days for them to be involved in if they can get themselves ready. So there's no. You'd hope they're not pushing themselves to be back for any particular game. Just to kind of not take it easy, but make sure they come back at the right time. There was a little mini kind of loan roundup I can do for two players, two young Spurs players, and a really big moment for George Abbott. You might have heard me speaking about George in recent weeks whenever I've done little loan roundups. He's only 19 years old. He was the Tottenham under-21s captain for much of last season. Big part in them winning the Premier League too, but also the playoffs afterwards as well. I feel like my brain hasn't gone completely scrambled. I think he scored late on in the final as well. But yeah, really versatile player. You pretty much can say to George, play there, and he'll do a job there, and he'll do it really well. A bit like Archie Gray for the first team. He can play in so many different roles, even though most of them would not be a natural role for him. And the good thing, I guess, about, if there's any good thing about international break, is that League Two still keeps playing, as does non-league. So hopefully a lot of people get to go and see those games. But Notts County, where George Abbott is at, he played for them at the weekend. They played against Chesterfield, which is a bit of a derby for them. And he got his first ever assist as a senior pro, which is brilliant. Interestingly, there was a couple of ex-Spurs links in there as well. Playing for Chesterfield was Dylan Markanday. You might remember we spoke about him being a very talented young academy player, came through, who just didn't quite make it towards the first team, and he ended up, I think it was Blackburn he went to, wasn't it? I could be wrong, but I feel like it was Blackburn. He also got an assist, actually, on Saturday for Chesterfield. And Nick Cerula, who was also a Spurs under-21s player at one point. I feel like he ended up leaving the club and maybe going to something like Brentford B. I think he went to Brentford's B team, I think. But he is playing for Notts County as well. Came on in the second half for them. So, but George Abbott's assist, it's a really good one. If you get to see it, I think Notts County put out the like a YouTube video of it, and he was playing at right wing back. George is probably primarily a central midfielder who can also play in defence. But he was playing as a right wing back, and he really does a lovely 1-2 down the line, cuts it, or kind of like a chipped cross to the back post, and the I've written down his name here so I can get it actually right. Alassana Jatta heads it in, back across the goal. It was a really nice goal, actually. So, yeah, massive kind of moment for him. George Abbott, 86 minutes he played in the game. 2 key passes, 61 touches of the ball, 1 dribble, 3 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 1 clearance. And, lots of nice quotes from him after as well, about how not really playing in that position as one of his positions, and kind of just doing the job. And also, was also asked about is when will his first goal come, and he said hopefully soon. Hopefully the next time you're interviewing me, he said to the media. It wasn't me, it was the local media at the club as well. But no, he was absolutely made up, and quite rightly so. He's had a really good loan. I think he's played 8 times for Notts County. 588 minutes he's played for them, I've written down here. The other player who got a little bit of game time was Carrie Blowdorn, young 19-year-old goalkeeper who's currently at Aveley in National League South. They lost 1-0 at home to Chippenham. Unfortunately, he kind of had a bit, but he's had a really good loan. I should put that out there first. He had a terrific loan, been a really great experience for him. But unfortunately, it seems like the goal at the weekend had a little bit to do with him coming out and not getting quite to a ball, and it was put back into the net, and that was the 81st minute winner for Chippenham. But, like I say, great loan move for his development, and all stuff like that is part of your education development as a player as well. You've got to experience that. 10 games he's played for them so far. I think 9 in the league and 1 in the FA Cup, I think, if I remember correctly. That's going well for him overall. I couldn't head off. I've got a few days off coming up, as I said in the last video. Couldn't head off without going back to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium one more time, because I'm not going to be there on Saturday. I went to watch the NFL, which, anyone that has heard me speak about this, I know it's not for everyone in the UK, but NFL, I do enjoy a bit of NFL. I do really enjoy on a Sunday with I've got 3 fantasy teams going on at the moment, and I'm trying to keep an eye on them all. This is the first year I haven't done a Premier League one, and I've kind of put all my efforts into my NFL ones, and it's quite literally a whole new ball game. But yeah, it's just mad. It's just so different at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's so transformed. The way I get to see it is you have to go through the NFL. I do an accreditation process, which I've managed to do for the last, actually every year since it's opened. Because what I do is I combine it with, I always write a feature about it and how, mainly from a Spurs perspective, and how it works within the stadium and what it means to the club and things like that as well. So you have to go through the actual NFL and proper channels. It's not done through the Premier League. It's nothing to do with Spurs. They literally like rent out the building to NFL, and you have to go through all of them. So when I'm in the media room, it's like I don't know anyone. It's like all of these very cool sounding American journalists and a few from various parts of Europe as well. Germany, a couple of German guys sat next to me in the press box, and some of the analysts I see on TV. Each weekend, so you kind of get a little bit starstruck when you see these people. But yeah, it's all done through the NFL, and Spurs are old hands now at putting this on, or certainly the stadium putting it on. That's actually one of the things. The stewards, a lot of stewards are the same. I see a lot of the same faces I come in and see at Premier League matches, and they know what they're doing. They are expert types. They do not only the football and the NFL, but it's just so many other things as well. And yeah, it was a good game. Chicago Bears taking on Jacksonville Jaguars and absolutely smashing them, quite frankly. If you're not aware, don't worry, I'm not going to talk too much about the NFL side. I know there's some people that really, really kind of have quite an aversion to that. I'm going to talk about more how it affects Spurs, the financial side of it as well, because the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is which certainly was, it may still be, the only purpose-built NFL stadium outside of that side of the Atlantic. And they've been doing it for half a decade now, and it is as slick as it comes. It is. It's a spectacle. It's a showcase. The only way I'd explain it, Indy, that is so uncomfortable, man. He's absolutely wedging himself up against me. This is weird, isn't it? As I've said this before, but this could be just me having a breakdown and just making this up. There's nothing there. Where was I? Talking of having a bit of a lapse in brain power. Just how they put it all on and the spectacle and the fans. What I would say is that when you're watching a Premier League game, in terms of the fans, the noises are it's like a reaction to kind of. There's obviously you get the chant and you get support as well, but mostly it's about the reaction. Whereas I kind of feel like in NFL, the noise is like a constant noise and then goes up a little bit more when something big happens, because it's meant to be a day of entertainment, as it were, if that makes any sense. And yeah, I mean, when you get a game like that, it's 35-16 to the Bears. You had the number 1 draft pick from the 2024 draft in Caleb Williams, who's just an incredible talent, their quarterback, the Bears. And and it's weird because Jacksonville Jaguars, again, sorry to get too NFL-y for people that aren't into that sort of thing, but Jacksonville Jaguars are normally the London team. They play at Wembley over the years. They've kind of tried to establish themselves as the London team. But they were playing away, in a sense. The Bears were the home team, and Jags were getting booed, and it was a strange thing to watch. I was not the only kind of Spursy type person there. Ange Postecoglou was there. Of course, I should stress, if you're not aware what happens, I would imagine most Spurs fans are now. The pitch slides away underneath the south stand, and underneath is an artificial surface which they use for the NFL. There was a little bit last year about that surface and those kind of surfaces across NFL and causing injuries, and there were a couple of injuries last year. This year, I think there was one this time. I think whether it's serious or not, I don't know. But there wasn't really anything made of that this year. But yeah, Ange Postecoglou was there. Ange Postecoglou is a big NFL fan, although I know his affections do not lie with either of those teams. I'm not going to say who his team are, because I don't know if that's meant to be out there in the public domain, but it's not the two teams he was watching. But he loves it. He absolutely loves it. He's been at the last 2 years' worth of NFL London games. There's 2 each season at Spurs at the moment. I think it's a minimum of 2 is the contract, so it could well be more as it goes on. But yeah, you could see down, he was down on the pitch with his family, and you could just see how, like, kind of far removed from the stresses of Premier League life and just enjoying himself. There was a little moment he was down on the pitch with Daniel Levy and also with the Fulham owner, the Jags, who is also the Jags owner, Shahid Khan. And there was a really nice moment where Postecoglou exchanged a signed Spurs shirt signed by all the team with a Bears shirt signed by all the Bears, but with Tory Taylor, who is the punter for the Bears. And there's a nice little story with Tory Taylor as well, because he's from Melbourne. Like, Ange obviously grew up in Melbourne from the age of 5 onwards. And Tory Taylor is another kind of success story from that part of the world. He's 27 years old, spent 4 years playing college football at the University of Iowa, and then the Bears drafted him in this most recent draft, the same one as Caleb Williams, but he came in the 4th round, which itself was still the highest selected punter in half a decade. A punter is the guy you'll see booting the ball, often to start the game, but also on a 4th down when a team is not looking likely that they're going to get anywhere near the end zone. And yeah, it was. You could just kind of see on Postecoglou's side, he's got this real pride about Australians going around the world and making something of themselves. And you could just see, while I was chatting with him, he had a real grin on his face. And he does that. I think he said before he's got a WhatsApp group where he links up and chats with other kind of coaches doing their thing around the world, and he kind of gets a lot from that, and takes a lot from giving advice, but also listening to their ideas as well. And yeah, so great to see another Australian doing it on the scene, as it were, across the world. And yeah, it was weird to see, and it always will be, to see the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium become someone else's home. And the Bears very much did that. Everything was decked out in Chicago Bears stuff. And there was a funny little moment when Keenan Allen scored a touchdown and they all sat around drinking tea with their little finger up in the air, because that's what we all do, isn't it, of course. And Keenan Allen, actually, who's 32-year-old, he's quite an experienced wide receiver and he's been around the world. If I suddenly do that, it's because Indy has wedged himself into a really small space on the sofa and is kind of barging backwards as to say, you move, this is my spot. Yeah, he kind of admitted afterwards he wasn't quite expecting what that support was going to be like inside the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. He said, I didn't expect it. DJ Moore, who's another wide receiver at the Bears, said, it's a home game, watch this. And I said, yeah, all right, let's see. I'll see how it looks. And he said, I was not ready for that. That was solid, in his words. And look, I get it. That will grate on Spurs fans. Absolutely. Of any other team calling their home stadium their home. I understand it. Technically, it's 2 teams this season when it comes to the NFL. And look, I get it. Some people will not care about American sports. They won't care about anything to do with it being a noisy distraction away from the Tottenham Hotspur that they know and love. And look, you know, I'm sure they'll be saying the ball's the wrong shape anyway and all that sort of stuff. But as I'll always say about stuff like this, there's no sense in building £1 billion stadium to just have it lying there, shuttered up, closed, empty, dark for 345 days or so a year, other than when Spurs play it. It's nonsensical. It makes no sense. And White Hart Lane was used frequently as well. Not as frequently, because it didn't have that foresight to be kind of built with that in mind. But look, it is Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It's their stadium, but it will also be used for other stuff. And we've said it before, it is the first step on the journey of trying to compete with these massive state-owned clubs and the ones with huge mega billionaires that kind of run them. And you just look at it. At the stadium on yesterday, 61,182 people packed in there as well. And the game began at 2:30. fans were coming in hours before. There's a thing in NFL called tailgating where they all essentially have parties and barbecues and things like that long before. And the game itself, so it started at 2:30, doesn't end until 5:30. Many of the crowd stuck around eating and drinking within the stadium, and you're allowed to drink in your seat as well, which obviously I don't think you are in Premier League anymore, are you? No, you're not. No, you can't have a beer in your seat at all, can you? But you can in the NFL. And when I left after the press conferences had been done, about 7:00, there were still people going into the mega store, the club shop, which is all like switched to NFL stock during that time as well. And eventually Spurs will build that huge blade-like hotel that's going to sit in the South Stand or South Plaza, and those people are going to be kind of there from either the night before or there the night after. They're just going to spend money in the place. They're going to spend money in the local area as well. So I think the reason I'm telling you all of that is take all that into account. Take those hours and the spending, and you'll kind of start to work out what Spurs make from the stadium. I can go a bit deeper for that for you. So just in the Premier League alone, when Spurs would play at White Hart Lane, they would make just under £1 million per game from everything associated in revenue, essentially. So that's not profit, but that's revenue that they would bring in. At the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, in every game that Ange Postecoglou's side play at home, Spurs bring in around or just under £6 million. So gone from under 1 million to 6 million. NFL games are slightly different. There is a different element to them. In essence, like I said, Spurs rent out the stadium to the NFL. So they make their money mainly from the original NFL deal they signed. The rental fee paid by the NFL was part of the contract, which was extended last year until 29-30 season, I believe it is. And they also pull in major amounts of money with food sales, drink sales, merchandise from the megastore as well. That's where all the money comes in. I mean, just to give you a bit of context, you might have heard me say this before. Back in 2019, in the first NFL London games at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, the bottoms-up beer that made that technology that makes the beers fill from the bottom of the glass, they tweeted that year they'd made 1 million, or what there had been £1 million worth of beer sales before the beer ran out in the third quarter of the game, which broke the record for beer sales at any European venue in history. So it kind of shows you what they're making. And they ran out. And bearing in mind, over the ensuing years, those prices will have gone up for the beers, and the beer stock would definitely not be running out in the third quarter. I'm sure they would make sure they got loads of it. So yeah, there's money coming from that. There's also the other benefits of retaining the name Tottenham Hotspur, the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. We're all obsessed, myself as well, with the stadium naming rights and when's that going to happen? When they're going to finally find someone that meets their requirements for a deal? But it actually, just keeping it as a Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, kind of has unexpected benefits and opens the door for new sponsorship deals as well. Because in America, even those who might not know about the Premier League or a team like Tottenham Hotspur, they'll know of the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium if they love NFL, because it is 2 games a season played there. And not only that, but so we have FIFA EAFC, as it's called nowadays, the video game, the console game to play your football on. With NFL, they have a game called Madden each year. It's got like EAFC 25-26. Madden is Madden 24-25-26. So their Madden, which is NFL, one of the stadiums in that is the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Again, it's this like thing of just getting the name out there and the brand and everything. And look, I know there's some people just like, I don't care about all of this. I care about brands and income and revenue and all this sort of stuff. But ultimately, it all kind of feeds back in. That's the idea. That's the way of trying to compete against these cash-rich clubs, is to try and have a big generator. And of course, we saw that with the stadium income now, was it 500 million in revenue the first time they've done that? That's not profit. They made a loss. Was it 80-something million loss? I can't remember what it was now. But their revenue is huge compared to what it was. And yeah, I'm sure one day they would love to have an NFL franchise in London at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium if they can, whatever you want to call it. put it in the comments, or just don't want to know anything about it. That's absolutely fine as well. But yeah, it's not even just about NFL. They would love to have it. Just think about the NFL. The dream, wasn't it, was to have like double header matches where you'd have a Premier League game and an NFL game. I don't know if the pitch technology right now is quick enough to do that and how the turnaround within the stadium would work doing that. But you would imagine it's not going to be far off where these won't be in international breaks. They'll be, or when the team's playing away, they'll end up maybe being within the same weekend, possibly. But yeah, like I say, it's not just about NFL though, because you've got boxing, you've got rugby, you've got concerts, you've got conferences, you've got tours, you've got events. F1 karting experience thing now, is it Drive? I can't remember what it's called now. It all brings in money that goes towards the football club. That's the idea. And yeah, actually talking about money, there was a recognisable face in the crowd, technically in a box at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It wasn't Postecoglou, although he was there. It wasn't Timo Werner or Jed Spence, who were both there. It wasn't the many music stars of today and maybe slightly yesteryear and celebrities in there. It was Amanda Staveley, who was enjoying the game from a box in the stadium. You may well be aware who Amanda Staveley is. She's very well known for kind of being at Newcastle. She was the financier who helped broker Saudi Arabian, the public investment fund's takeover of Newcastle in 2021 with her husband, Mehrdad Gaddousi. Probably absolutely murdered the pronunciation, so I apologise to anyone involved. And Amanda Staveley was a director at Newcastle 3 years until this summer, when it was a bit of a parting of the ways, which didn't look entirely like something that she wanted to happen. And now she's been linked very heavily in recent months with Spurs and bringing money from the Middle East to Tottenham. Levy's made no kind of secret of the fact this year that Spurs are looking for investment, and because I guess combined with the stadium revenue, investment, it will make Spurs a power player, hopefully. He said at the Fans Forum, in case you missed it, we announced with our last results, we believe the club needs a bigger capital base because we've got a lot of exciting projects on the horizon and we want to make further investment in the teams. Some form of minority investment is what we're looking for. We've got nothing to announce at the moment. We are in the market. I'm fascinated by the idea of if it does happen. All right, Indy. He's shoving me like mad. I know this is very weird in a video where you can't actually see it. Can you hear him sighing? He's occasionally sighing. Oi, why don't you sit up and look at the camera? You don't have to. Yeah, I'm fascinated by the idea of if Amanda Staveley does come on board and how it worked with her and Levy and the way Tottenham are. Because Tottenham and Levy, they like to work very much in the shadows. They do. They're not crime fighters, but they kind of try and do their business quietly and effectively. That's the way they do it. Amanda Staveley certainly appears to be, from the outside, more of a public presence. I mean, she probably gave more interviews during her 3 years at Newcastle than Levy's done in the last 20, 25 years. And she's been a public presence recently. She's been at, was it Spurs Brentford? I'm trying to think. There was a Spurs home game recently that she was seen at. There's been talk that she's been at both of the NFL games at Spurs as well, the one the previous weekend as well. And look, if she was able to kind of bring in the finance to get a minority stake within Spurs, I think she's very much someone that, like I said before, would be kind of one that sets up a deal, brokers a deal with others. I don't think she's someone that has all that money. I think she's more someone that kind of makes these things happen, is the face of it, as it were. But yeah, I'm fascinated at the dynamic that would occur if she were to come on in some kind of capacity. Indy, come here. Wait, come here. Come on, up. No. Oh, you almost sat up there. Come here. No, he's deliberately lying down. Yeah, fascinating to see the dynamic with her and Daniel Levy, and how that would work. And because he is a very kind of hands-on. Oh. No, he's up. Come here. Come on the camera. There you go. He's there. Look at an absolute hairy mess at the moment right now because it's about time he got a haircut. He does exist. He is there. I'm just talking to a sofa. yeah, he's like a hands-on guy, but works behind the scenes, like ridiculously involved into the levels of that stadium. I was told about him kind of being like even involved down to picking what kind of doorknobs for various doors and bits of the skirting board and things like that, just tiny little details and obviously someone that really likes to be involved, and that is a criticism as well, maybe too involved, some might say. Whereas, yeah, how is he going to take it when someone else coming in but with a minority stake maybe wants to make an impact and wants things to happen, yet they have a minority stake? How's that going to be taken? Will someone coming in feel like they have a big enough say? I find that all absolutely fascinating. And what I would love in an ideal world is that whoever comes in and actually brings a minority stake, maybe they'll actually talk to us, the media. Oh, he's going to jump. There we go. He's off the sofa. At least he didn't knock everything over. I assumed when he jumps off, we'd see the camera go and everything, but he did not. Fair play. Good jump. Yeah, and maybe they'll talk to us. Maybe we'll get more interviews with someone else. And like I said, the whole dynamic's going to be fascinating because Spurs don't like noise. They don't. They don't at all. We'll see. We'll see. Certainly the Newcastle fans seem to kind of have a soft spot for Amanda Staveley and her partner as well. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. And Spurs have been very quiet on it. They have been, to be fair, with anyone linked with investment this year. So that's nothing new. It's not saying it's going to happen. It's not saying it isn't. But her continued presence, you would maybe guess, leans towards there being something there. Whether it ends up being something more than just, someone who's turning up at matches, we'll see. But yeah, so we'll see what the future holds for all of that. And it's just add a whole new dynamic to things, not only between them, but just because we've had the whole Levy, Enoch narrative now for quarter of a century. It'd be interesting to see what other people with other money, but also ideas coming in and how that works. And yeah, you would imagine that, we've seen at other clubs sometimes when they don't approve of something, then it can be quite publicly said as well. So I'm fascinated to see how that all works. So what else has happened? Ryan Mason almost went to Anderlecht, but didn't quite in the end. They approached Mason on Spurs to talk with Mason. They had discussions over a few days, but ultimately both parties just mutually decided it wasn't the right time. For everything I understand, he's enjoying being part of the staff at Spurs. It's bigger staff now, of course. It's got Matt Wells, Nick Montgomery, Sergio Raimundo, Mile Jedinak and Rob Birch, and he's enjoying being part of that. Anderlecht were looking for a new manager. They sacked Brian Reamer it was about a month ago. He'd been there for 2 years at the club, and they've been struggling a little bit. But what they did, they turned to, in the end, their caretaker manager, David Hubert, who I think he's done pretty well. Certainly it was 2 draws and a win the last time I'd looked at the 3 games he'd taken charge of as well. So I think it was one of the local reporters told me there was a suggestion that the board was saying he was too inexperienced when he was 36. And then they were looking at Ryan Mason, was he 32 now, Ryan? I'm trying to remember what he is now. 33. Sorry, he's 33 years old. So, Ryan Mason will get a job at some point. It's so key in today's world to pick the right one as your first one. I mean, Chris Davies doing well at Birmingham. That's great to see. But it is a massive thing because you can kind of sink without a trace if you get the wrong first job. I can understand the appeal of Anderlecht. Vincent Kompany obviously went there and did what he did, went on to Burnley and then Bayern Munich. But you can easily, get at the wrong club. And I know it wasn't his first job, but Scott Parker went to Club Bruges with Matt Wells, and that didn't work out for them at all. They were gone within a matter of months. And Yeah, I think for Ryan Mason, he has to pick the right one. I've always felt Ryan Mason gets this like kind of really unfairly tarnished with this whole like I don't know, like people think he's like Levy's mole or something like doing his little secret like I don't know like Morse code up to the boardroom. Did it. You know, you'll never guess what Andy's doing. Can't believe it. It's unbelievable. He's talking about you. You'll never guess what he said about you. It's just not that. He's a really good, highly rated young coach. He did really well. I actually think on both occasions when he came in as caretaker manager, I was looking back at them. First one he came back, I've got it written down. He was only 29 when he did the first spell. He's had 13 games for Spurs, won 6, 1 draw, 6 defeats, scored 26 goals, conceded 21, and of course Carabao Cup final against Man City when everyone thought Spurs were going to get tonked, and they only lost to a late Aymeric Laporte goal. And look, there's a whole other side to that. You can absolutely have a qualm or not understand why Jose Mourinho was got rid of just before a final. That's a whole other thing. But I always felt Mason came and did well. First like stretch of games I felt was more 29-year-old coming into that situation and winning the bulk. I feel like he won 4 of his 6 Premier League games. I think that was the stat. Second spell I felt was more difficult. He was picking up the messes of first Conte and then Stellini, and he did a lot behind the scenes. I think I've said this before, but a lot of what Postecoglou took over was because of the work Mason did, and he brought a lot of the departments back together that had been really fractured under Conte. So yeah, I've always got a lot of time for Ryan Mason. I think he's going to go on to be a very good manager. I wouldn't be stunned if, you know, within a few years, he's seen as the one that, I wonder if he'll come back to Spurs and kind of fulfill his dream as a Spurs manager because he's doing very well at club XYZ or whatever. So yeah, very quickly, I want to do a very quick roundup of the players because I looked into them this week. The players who left the club in 2024 and what they're up to. So I'm going to fly through these because I actually have a lot of time left. I'm going to go out. Tongi's doing really well in Nice. It's working for him. Finally, he's getting game time. He's happy. He's settled. He's played 562 minutes across 8 matches, got a goal and an assist. And Frank Heis, the Nice boss, is just working for him. He just understands him. He said the other day, he's someone who needs, and he isn't the only one, a climate of trust, and that is what we're trying to bring to him. But beyond the atmosphere around the club that's been put in place, it's Tongi first and foremost who's ensuring it's going well. Little by little, we're discovering the player that we knew a few years ago. What I see from his matches, I think in terms of confidence, it's going pretty well. Confidence comes through hard work, through your investment. And yeah, I think in the game against PSG, he was voted man of the match. He's doing really well. And yeah, it didn't happen at Spurs, and I'd loved it too. But, you know, I hope he kind of turns himself around. It feels like he is, but it's about doing this consistently. Giovanni Lo Celso, he has been very good back at Real Betis. Very good indeed. He had a bit of a Brennan Johnson run of games where he scored in 4 consecutive La Liga games. 5 in total across those. I think he scored 2 in the first of them. He's doing very well indeed. Troy Parrott's doing absolutely fine. 6 goals in 10 competitive games for Alkmaar so far, only 22 years old. 4 of them did come in one remarkable 9-1 win against Heerenveen. But, you know, he's doing well. He scored the winning goal in the Europa League from the spot against Elfsborg. And he obviously is coming back to, hopefully, a Tottenham reunion next week as well when RZ come to town. But yeah, no, he's doing fine. Rafael van der Vaart said of him recently, he's going to be a really big player. I saw him at Excelsior, but then he was more on the counter. Now he is a good footballing striker who actually has everything. He just needs to develop his killer instinct a bit. He is a gem. He can perhaps play football a bit too well to be a killer, but you start wondering a bit, and that costs strength. In the final phase, you lack some strength to score. I think he's a gem. Oliver Skipp at Leicester, he's doing fine. He's trying to think. Started 5 of the 8 matches since he's joined them, playing well enough, found a good club for him. I think Emerson Royal, not the best of starts at AC Milan. I think the Milan fans kind of pine a little bit for the player. He replaced Pierre Kalulu, who went to Juventus and has done very well there. So, yeah, he hasn't won them over yet, and especially the early couple of games. I think he's got better from what I understand, but the early couple of games he had some shaky ones. Ryan Sessegnon's at Fulham. He's got 2 90-minute stints under his belt in the Carabao Cup for Fulham. Been on the bench, I think, once or twice in the Premier League. Again, just him building up his fitness after a long time out. Højbjerg, I'm going to mention him, even though technically he's going to be heading to Marseille because they've got an obligation to buy. He's captained them 3 times in their past 5 matches already. He's also the captain of Denmark. And yes, as I said before, I would have probably, I think, if he'd come on to the second half against Brighton, probably not seeing the result that we did. But that's a whole other discussion. And yeah, he's only tasted defeat once at Marseille so far. And that was in the game against Strasbourg when he had to play as a centre-back because there were so many injuries. Joe Rodon carried on where he did last season for Leeds. Played all but 4 minutes of Leeds' 10 matches so far in the Championship and Carabao Cup. And of course, he's got Manuel Solomon there as well. Japhet Tanganga, he's doing well at Millwall. I've got notes down written here. Yeah, pretty much ever present. Had a suspension, 3-game suspension that carried over from last season, but yeah, he's played his part in 3 clean sheets in 7 matches. Even Perisic, he is at Eindhoven. Yeah, I was going to say, I thought it was in the Netherlands. He's was at Hajduk Split. Gattuso came in. They just didn't seem to like each other or didn't seem to find each other's a mutual understanding, and there was mutual understanding in their termination of his contract. And he's gone to Eindhoven where he's signed a 1-year deal. Too late, I think, to play in Europe for them in the Champions League, but yeah, he's starting games for them in the league. Eric Dyer struggling to get game time at the moment under Vincent Kompany. He's only played 9 minutes across 2 games in the Bundesliga, 4 games in the Bundesliga unused on the bench. So not quite working for him there at the moment under Kompany. Jude Soonsup-Bell, he's at Spanish second division side Cordoba, and yeah, he's doing fine. He's played 4 matches for them so far in La Liga 2. Yeah, they're struggling a little bit in the attacking third, so I'm hoping he gets more opportunities. He's kind of coming off the bench, really. Iago Santiago, he was doing really well at Elche, same division as Soonsup-Bell Cordoba, but he got an injury, which kept him out for about a month. He came back last weekend in a game for them as well. So 21-year-old winger, hopefully going to do very well there. Niall John, he is in Portugal. He is playing for Portuguese second-tier side Farense. Played 4 to 6 games he's been available for, and yeah, he's getting lots of minutes to his name, so that's great. Charlie Sayers, he was in the under-21s last season. He went on that tour to Seoul a couple of years back, and he is now at Scottish Championship side Partick Thistle. He can play as a left-back or a centre-back. It looked like he was maybe getting something. He came from Southend where he'd played a couple of senior games, and he looked like he was getting near the first team, and he got a really awful eye injury, but thankfully he's kind of got past that. But yeah, now he's in Scotland, and he's made just the 1 9-minute league appearance for them, but he also did play 90 minutes in the 3rd round of the Scottish Challenge Cup. Finally, you can see I'm rattling through it. Hugo Lloris, he is at LAFC in MLS, and he's already won silverware. That's the rule. You leave Tottenham, you win things. He's already played 40 times for LAFC now, which is mad. Kept 17 clean sheets, and he lifted the US Open Cup last month after LAFC's extra time win against Kansas City. He's been making some real eye-catching saves. There's been a lot of little clips and compilations of him that have gone up, I've seen on social media. So yeah, really good. So that's that really. That's me kind of trying to squeeze as much as I can into this in the time I've got. I'm literally supposed to be out the door in 5 minutes. Went for a run this morning as part of my preparations for the marathon. Absolutely horrible wet run on a slippy, muddy track and pouring rain. Also, after that, had my first ever visit to a physio. I've never done that before in my life. Went to this brilliant chap called George Cooper, who used to be a physio at West Ham, Palace and Forest. This isn't an advert, by the way. I absolutely paid in full for it. It's just a really nice guy. Spurs fan as well. And had loads of great kind of stories to tell about the game, which was cool, as he was trying to work out why my knees were so dodgy and why I had a really sore left calf. It's essentially just haven't run much for years and now trying to put my body through. I think I've done like 140 miles in the last, whatever it is, 6 to 8 weeks. And yeah, my body is absolutely feeling that now. I need this little holiday I've got coming up. But yeah, no, just a lovely chap. So I thought I'd mention him in this. And great experience in the game as well. So yes, like I say, a little bit of time off now. Always try and do it in October rather than the summer because the summer's just mad and I can never, with the tour and the transfer window and everything. So I always kind of do this, try to get out of the way a little bit. We've got this a very quick, kind of trying to pack a load into a very short space of time. We've got, we're going to, and this is all over a space of about 10 days to 2 weeks, or no, 12 days to 2 weeks, going to Toronto, Chicago, Charleston, Charlotte, where I've got family, and Miami. We're going to say, it's like whistle stop, like, oh, that's on to the next one. Gold road trip. But yeah, very much looking forward to it. Need it really. So after an international break, you just want to escape as it is. If Mrs. Gold allows it, I would love to maybe do a little very short video sometimes. If I'm like stuck in an airport and people are watching me as I'm getting on a flight, I might do that. But otherwise, I'm just going to try and unwind for a little bit. So yeah, time to head off. Hopefully we packed a load in there in a very short space of time. I say short. I know it's 46 minutes, but for me that's short. You know it is. Yeah, I think that's everything. I shall catch you on the flip side and we'll try and have a little chat about some of the coming games, which I'll, you know what I'm like, I don't really like to talk about them too much and too in depth if I'm not there, because I feel like you don't see a lot of it if you're not right there watching it. But if people want to hear my views on them, I will try and endeavour, even if it's just like a 15-20 minute video, I shall try to do that at some point. Right, time to head off. Stay safe, stay healthy, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later. Goodbye.